The ANC's Lekgotla and reaction to the IEC's decision to open the process of candidate nomination. Let's take it there live.
We'll take your questions and comments, and we'll interact for as long as we can, and as long as you're able to stay. So you do know that we have a Lekgotla twice a year, and we did have a Lekgotla in January, where we looked at the program for the government for the period of the MTEF. It's a 3-year program. Now, what we did in this particular Lekgotla, we were a bit more specific about what we need to do for particularly creating jobs and the reduction of poverty. That was our number one discussion. And we affirmed that our central task is exactly that, is to create jobs and to reduce poverty. And also we cognizant of the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic has dramatically deepened poverty and inequality and unemployment in our country. The closures, many companies have closed down, and indeed our unemployment rate is extremely high at the moment. Crime, corruption, and the erosion of state capacity has also contributed to a sense of insecurity among South Africans and have weakened our ability to respond to the challenges facing our country. We agreed that we need to undertake extraordinary measures to rebuild and transform our economy and to improve the capacity of the state. And I'd like you just to underline that point. We have to act with great purpose and focus to stimulate growth in our economy and create unemployment opportunities as a matter of urgency. So there's no time to waste, throw our hands up in the air, be despondent. We simply have to do the job and get it done properly and faster. We also looked at the ANC itself, the role of the ANC, and the situation in the country and the state of our movement has given rise to some frustration, and of course we recognize some disillusionment as well. But again, I want to say, this is not a time to throw our hands up in the air. It is a time to recommit to the rebuilding of the country and to act with clarity and decisiveness, which means the rebuilding of the ANC is an important element. And our renewal project, which is quite far advanced, is experiencing a pushback. We see quite a dramatic pushback from new parties that are being formed from within the ANC, the aggressiveness of the opposition in our country. They've understood that perhaps the ANC its renewal is a bit slow, but it's not slow, it's just more thorough, and that takes time. A strong and united ANC is critical for the effective functioning of government and crucial for social cohesion. And while we're facing challenges, the Lekgotla has resolved to intensify our efforts to strengthen unity and to renew the organization. We again look very intensively at COVID-19, and we recognize that the world was living with COVID-19 pandemic since the beginning of 2020. Restrictions on movement and social interaction, and sadly, the high numbers of infections and loss of life associated with COVID-19 has caused immense trauma to our society. Vaccinating most adults is a crucial component to the success of our economic recovery. And the ANC government and various other sections of society are intensifying the campaign to urge more and every eligible South African to be vaccinated. We must be more proactive, and we agreed that we must be more proactive and mobilize a wide range of stakeholders. Let me say that includes the media, towards this end of encouraging people to be vaccinated. It is a truth and a reality that the more people that are vaccinated, the less mutations we will encounter with the virus, and the less illness there will be. It doesn't mean the virus is going to go away, but it does mean we will begin to create some measure of immunity amongst the population. So we also recognize that developing countries have continued to pursue various strategies to acquire the means to produce the COVID-19 vaccines. including the waiver of aspects of the agreement on trade-related and intellectual property rights. This is going to allow South Africa and countries to the south to build capacity to produce medication and consumables, as well as develop domestic manufacturing and job creation capacity. Aspen has already begun production, and I think they've produced over 25 million doses. Some of it has been put out in the market, some of it will be kept back for our own consumption in South Africa. Now, in order to fight poverty, the pandemic has had an impact, and it has actually exposed the levels of our poverty much more stark than before. Although grants have reduced hunger, the granting of giving of a grant has reduced daily hunger. It has not eradicated poverty, and there is no reality such as that. The grants are there to try to bring down hunger, to try to assist the most poor and vulnerable in our society. But what will reduce poverty is concrete job creation, giving people a dignified way in which to make a living. That's what will reduce poverty ultimately. So the ANC has put down a determination to accelerate the implementation of the Economic Recovery and Reconstruction Plan, and to continue to promote structural reforms and to promote local productive activity to grow our economy. It's been a lot of discussion and talk about local production, but local government is the engine room for the stimulation of local productive economies. And that's why we've been obsessed a little bit with finding the right people to go into local government. We'll talk about that as well with you today, making sure that we have proper capacity in the local government sphere, that we're not seeing people employed because they're the friends of somebody else, or you have somebody employed as in the wrong position. They might be well qualified, but they may not be qualified for that particular job. Of course, our country has a dearth of engineers, and as we know, all the engineers are now located in the Western Cape, which is unfair, but it's also a reality of our demography, that over the apartheid years, black South Africans were not allowed to train as engineers. And we've only begun to properly train engineers in the last 15 years. And a good engineer with experience, to run properly takes quite a bit of time to develop. So the older engineers have all gone to the Western Cape, and that's where they've located themselves. It's a sad reality, and it's one that we must all try to undermine and find a way forward. Then access to digital platforms and broadband, we also discussed that. The increased role of digital platforms in our economic lives is expected to persist even beyond the pandemic, as more and more social, economic governance and supply chain interaction move to the digital sphere. I think we all have become very used to Zoom, and all these other platforms that we talk through. It is a limitation, but it is a reality. We have to enable universal access to broadband and begin the release of spectrum in this country. Too many suppliers of spectrum. Currently, spectrum is held by the big 5 operators in the country, and that doesn't augur well for spreading it out. So there is a need to move way beyond the narrowness, and to look at a digital economy which is inclusive and sustainable. And we have now said to the government that they must fast-track the South African Connect project in a cost-effective manner. It's really up to the government to push this, and we're going to have to push them to push it as the ANC. On the manufacturing of vaccines, just a little bit of information that we got. We have built on the 20,000 ventilators already produced in South Africa. We've produced vaccines now. About 25 million doses of the J&J vaccine was completed at Aspen plant in the Eastern Cape, and more than half of those were released into the market, as I've said. Production is now mainly for use in South Africa and the rest of Africa. BioVac received a commitment from Pfizer to produce their vaccine in South Africa, so we will be producing the BioVac as well, scaling up over a period to 100 million doses, and the South African firm is now getting ready to retool for this opportunity. The reason for this, and we're quite happy to be the manufacturing base for our continent, it was a discussion and agreement at the AU that we would play that role, and we're very happy to do so. The country's localization campaign is showing results beyond the COVID industrial products too. These range from production of pots, pans on the one hand to cars, bakkies and fuel cells on the other, and efforts have been made to enable SMMEs and black industrialists to enter more industrial sectors of the economy, and the master plan rollout is gathering pace. The efforts have been benefited from close collaboration with companies, businesses, associations, and with the trade unions. And as you all know, these matters have all been discussed quite significantly in NADLEC as well. Now, we discussed the notion of special economic zones. Construction has started on a special economic zone to manufacture components for the auto industry in Tshwane, and the first 4 black-owned firms have been supported with money from the Auto Industry Transformation Fund. So that's a good thing. The new Mercedes-Benz model made in Buffalo City, East London, was launched in June of 2021. So the automotive industry creates a lot of jobs, as we know that, and downstream, upstream and downstream jobs. So it's a very good industry for us to continue to support and build on. Toyota announced the production of the first green hybrid vehicle and retooling of the factory for the first Corolla hybrid vehicle with a combination petrol and electric motor engine, and production is expected to commence this November. So that is what we heard from the trade and industry component in the discussion. Then on social security, there continues to be a very significant demand for government to continue with and expand income support measures for those living in poverty. Further work needs to be done towards the achievement of a comprehensive social security mechanism to ensure that all South Africans can live comfortably and with dignity. This requires better alignment and linkages between social security policies and the labor market policies, so that beneficiaries of social support can move more readily into employment. One of the things that we have heard the criticism about is that the grants disable people from looking for jobs. But at the same time, there's quite a lot of fact to the idea that people are using their grants collectively to start local economies, small little local economic production units, which is a good thing. But primarily the grants are intended to put food on the table. And the biggest recipients of grants right now is single mothers with children, and of course old age pensioners, who in our society take care of children in any event, as we know, as their children leave home. We are looking to extending further support to the unemployed and those who are structurally marginalized, possibly in the extension of the COVID-19 grant, targeted food poverty line support, or a basic income grant. The majority of us in the ANC support a basic income grant. And in the Lekgotla, that was the biggest perspective that was driven. What is needed is to look at how we can combine all of the grants that we currently have into a comprehensive system that would work well together with also training people for readiness for jobs in the market. What I think we should say to you is that young graduates who have a degree are going to be able to move into the market very rapidly. But the largest proportion of the people who are unemployed in our country and remain terminally unemployed are people who do not have a university degree or who have not completed high school. And Stats SA gave us those statistics, and that is quite problematic in that over 27 years people have been dropping out of school, and they're not old people, they are people at the ages of 40 and upwards who have dropped out at a point in their lives. That would have been pre-1990, and did not receive any further training to enable them to have a skill. And that's the stubborn unemployment factor that we have to deal with. We also spoke at length about climate change and a just transition. And this, we all agree that it presents a range of geopolitical, security, economic and social risks and opportunities for our country and the world. So they're both risks and opportunities in how we go forward. We must be resolute in ensuring that we engage with these risks and opportunities in a manner that advances South Africa's national and developmental interests in all aspects. As you know, 70% of our energy base is still based on coal. And it's been a battle with the mining industry and other industries. We have simply got to move towards other forms of energy in our country, and we can't wait forever. It must move on. Transition to a low-carbon, ecologically friendly and socially sustainable economy presents opportunities to create jobs, inclusion and growth in the following sectors: renewable energy grid construction, manufacturing of renewable components, battery storage, green vehicles and green hydrogen, while assisting us to further our environmental protection objectives. One thing that is beginning to happen globally is the market out there where you send your goods that you've produced asks questions like, what is the carbon footprint of this garment that you're selling to us? You know, and so it will become much more difficult in future if we are not able to say that we are using renewable energy as a base for our industrial development. And especially if we're looking towards creating external markets for goods produced in South Africa. And that's what we need to accept and understand, that there's no country that's an island. You have to trade with the rest of the world if you are to develop and to grow. We welcome the detailed planning Eskom has done for a just energy transitions to one power station, ensuring that workers and community well-being is assured and advanced in this process. The just transition also offers potential for our mining sector, where we have advantages in the platinum, lithium and other sectors. We will intensify work on the hydrogen economy, which includes hydrogen-powered fuel cell electric vehicles, where South Africa has a comparative advantage. Maybe in a year's time when you come here, you'll plug your cars outside while you wait for us to talk to you. Infrastructure development is the backbone of economic process. We must therefore aggressively expand social and economic infrastructure to meet the needs of the economy and South African people at large. This includes new investments in renewable energy, mining, water and sanitation, roads, bridges, human settlements, health and education. We were very happy to receive from Dr. Ramakgopa, who works in the President's office, what is actually already being done. It's on the go. And where they're still waiting to publish the specifications and invite for tenders. A great number of work has already progressed with road building, bridge building, infrastructure upgrading, and particularly waterworks and sewage works in some of the local areas. So there's been quiet work and it's been good work. Hopefully the water woes we have, especially along the Vaal Concourse, will soon be something of the past. We all pray. But one of the things the President emphasized was that the South African economy has to be supported by a bold and very, very courageous government at the moment. And therefore, the public sector has to take a leading role. And made the analogy with what is happening in other countries, and I'm not very good at isms, but you know, the whole neoliberal conscript of the Bretton Woods institutions was a rampant market economy would stimulate jobs, and we've seen globally that that's not the truth. So what the President was talking about was this notion of using infrastructure as the building blocks to creating development and local economies, as well as stimulating economic growth and ensuring that there is job creation. And I think that's quite remarkable. It's something that has been spoken to over the last 30 years. And the sense I got as a participant was that there was real commitment there. And as people were making their presentations, we could see in the presentations that indeed it wasn't just words. And you know, some of us, and myself in particular, I'm quite hawkish about that. I want to see that somebody's telling me what is being implemented, not giving me more plans and more plans. And this time around, we saw a great deal of implementation programs that are coming. Then the building a capable, ethical, and developmental state. And the reconstruction, growth, and transformation of our economy depends on the efficient state that is developmental in orientation and capable in operation. Agile, a state that can move fast. A state that can move fast with people that are able to do the job and do it properly, but do it effectively, efficiently, and in record time, not slow, progressively slow and lethargic, but fast and efficient and good. In local government, we have to say that you can put a lot of resources into local government, but if you do not have the qualified people to manage local government at a professional level, it will not work properly. Secondly, councillors and politicians at national, provincial, and regional level have a duty to make sure that the manifesto that we as the ANC are elected on is implemented. But what they cannot and should never do is to interfere with the implementation of the work that must be done by professionals and people that are employed by municipalities to do the job. We also talked about the fact that outsourcing has become an epidemic in local government. So you outsource everything. Whereas local government has people that they already employ and pay, why would you need to outsource for grass cutting, for instance, to someone else when you already have workers in the local authority who should be able to do that job? And herein is the nub of the problem, and that is about people misunderstanding this notion of 30% local content. We know that there are people who go around and demand cash from companies, and they claim it to be a policy. There's no such policy. The policy is that whatever you do, there must be a 30% local content in its application. And that means that if you're going to procure goods and services into any of the state authority, it cannot be less than 30% of the components that the state requires, all imported or coming from somewhere else. There must be local content. And unfortunately, the misunderstanding, and I'm sure you'll ask me this question, I think there's something called Madela Kufa in KZN, in the Northwest. it's quite serious, and it is something that we are determined to really work hard on eradicating, is this notion that gangs of people can go to a construction company and demand 30% of the cash that they make for themselves. It's not that there's no ANC-driven policy of that nature. We also have agreed that we want to see finalization of the work to put in place a single framework for the whole public service administration. We agreed long ago that we want a single public service, one, that would work from top to bottom, is interchangeable. You would be able to move people around from one level of the government to another if they qualified. You do not need to consistently have work in the silos that you work. You would have a minimum standards of employment for everybody from top to bottom, and that's what we've agreed on. I can see you looking at your watch, so I'm going to go faster. As you know, the district development model is the model on which we are premising our output. And the districts have already been set up. There are 54 districts now and 14 local municipalities. The district development model in plain English is a model that integrates government at all levels towards a single purpose. So if you're going to build roads, you're going to build roads based on what the National Roads Authority has to put into it, provincial and local, so that it's one plan and not 3 plans per example, and it would actually cost less and be much more effective and efficient. Of course, fighting crime and corruption we have to do as a matter of urgency. It's more than just corruption that we need to tackle. It is also just criminality, plain, simple criminality, gender-based violence, as well as housebreaking, thievery, hijackings, and so on. There was a great deal of discussion about how we go forward, but there needs to be some commitment towards improving the numbers of the South African police services. And then on the international front, we are part of an increasingly complicated and interconnected world, which is afflicted by many emergencies ranging from armed conflicts to epidemics, global warming, cybercrime to the displacement of people. And we are discussing our readiness to improve meaningfully a manner in which we can contribute to the process of enhancing regional and global common security. In our own neighborhood, we have a problem in Mozambique, but we're already involved there as a country. But it needs to go a little bit beyond boots on the ground. It is also the notion of what is the cause of that particular problem up there. I don't need to talk about local government elections. Enough was said over the weekend, except to say that we have 55 days left today. We're already working towards realizing a successful local government election for the ANC. As usual, we don't anticipate that we will not be given that it's an easy ride. There's never been an easy ride election for us. We will work hard. Our ambition is to win all the metros, including the Cape Town Metro. We said nothing. We made no comments about what should happen with the IEC. We only hoped that the IEC would take the legal and democratic decision that they did do. We want to say that we reject the accusation being made that the ANC tried to influence the IEC or the Constitutional Court in any way whatsoever. We did not, and we cannot. We met yesterday with all other political parties in the Party Liaison Committee for the first time with the IEC, and that's enough for us. We understood and accepted the position that they emerged with, that you cannot reopen voter registration without the concomitant reopening of and enabling people to run as candidates, because any person who registers as a voter is eligible to run as a candidate. And particularly since already in local government you have the prospects of independents who are eligible to run as. Also, I would like to say that it's been a bit sad for us to note how the media has distorted the facts. We put out that in a spread across 35 municipalities, there was a missing number of wards that did not have candidates, and that it would impact on our capacity to make sure that the people who want to vote for the ANC have the right to do so. SABC started the war by saying that 250 wards, 250 municipalities are affected. There are only 256 municipalities in the country. Then they changed it and said 90. We tried to correct that. We sent out a fact sheet. And even after the fact sheet was sent out, it didn't make a difference. The determination to try to suggest that some dark, deep, dirty thing had happened. What really happened was the following. In about 300 wards, people had been put on the list and there were digits missing on their ID numbers. Okay, so get the ID number, there's some digits missing. The IEC did not open for corrections immediately. When they started opening for corrections, that number reduced because we could correct it. Then there are about, and I won't go province by province, but I would say this, in about 35 odd municipalities where people's registration was not accepted. It was in the system, but the system closed at 9:30 that day. One lot of papers came in at 9:38. We have to tell you the truth. And that lot was the one that was not accepted by the IEC. Another lot came in at about 8:59. So what happened was, when the system initially shut down, that lot was not accepted. But it was in our, what we call our preliminary data. So it was there, but on their side, it didn't. It's not the IEC's fault, and there's no use you looking for blame, because that's what you do. Who's to blame? Whose head must roll? It was a difficult one, because in two areas, the provincial list committee and the PEC kept changing names. And when you change a name, one name, firstly the system takes off everything else, and then it allows you to reboot and put in the new list, a new sort of list with the new changed name. That's exactly what happened to us. So I wanted to dispel that, please. I know we're over that now, and we didn't want to go into a fight with you guys over this thing. And I kept saying to the DIP, leave it. Things will come out of a washing machine, and it will wash itself out. What was a bit sad was even the fact sheet we sent out eventually. You didn't really take it very seriously. Let me also say that we noted the decision of the Department of Correctional Services to release former President Jacob Zuma on medical parole, and we understand that he's not well, and our thoughts and prayers are with him. We're quite happy that he's back with his family. So let me end there and take your... Now, I'm on my own here because, as you know, I'll just take your What I'm going to do is, if maybe we can just put the lights, well, I'll try. I can see. My glasses are on and they are clean. I can see you. I'll take hands. If I don't know your name, I apologize. Tiri?
Okay, I'll start.
You can start.
All right.
I'll take three hands at a time.
Okay.
Tiri, and then behind Tiri? Pule. Okay, I'll just. Do you mind if I use first name?
Yes. Not mine.
Oh. Okay. Second name, please, ma'am. Mbali. Okay, those three first. Tiri, Pule, and Mbali.
Okay, yeah, I've got a lot of questions. Yes,
We'll take them slow.
I'm going to try. Let's start with the issue on the local government elections. You keep talking about the system errors, the glitches. The papers that you filed and subsequently withdrew spoke about the glitches as well. On the other side, the IEC says we monitor, we have a system that monitors at all times, minute by minute, it gives reports on what's happening.
Sure.
And that would suggest that if there were glitches, the IEC would have picked up on it. Did the ANC lie about the glitches? Strong parents on that. In hindsight, was the decision to centralize this process an error on the ANC's part? I'm going to try and leave it at 3 for now, but I definitely will come back. The opposition parties, I mean, you kind of addressed it about them saying it's special treatment, they're trying to get the ANC through the back door. They also are threatening legal action. Is the ANC going to oppose legal action? Just a quick one as well. You said you're preparing for local government elections. I have to ask, I haven't seen any posters. Do you understand the ANC to be broke? Staffers are upset that they don't have their salaries. So that speaks to a lack of capacity. How is the ANC going to prepare to campaign for these elections 55 days away? No staffers, no money, no posters on the streets. Thank you.
All right, maybe just two questions. Just another class. I'm just, DSG, you speak about the systems that are glitched as well. I just want to know, do we have a correct number of how many candidates were accepted by the system and those were blocked? Because you say that you sent the candidates on time. And maybe just on the matter of the staff as well, we understand that the top 6 will be meeting with the staff representative committee today. And the DA is also threatening to take legal action, saying you haven't paid out the UIF for the staffers. Is this something you're looking at as well? Will you also be opposing that application? Because in your briefing, you spoke about how there's been a lot of pressure from opposition parties as well. Thanks.
My colleagues have covered most of my questions, but DSG, I know that there were issues with your list that were taken to the IEC. We saw a number of protests outside the Treaty House, different regions protesting, saying that lists have been altered. Is this something now that you will be looking into, trying to address that? I know there were some people that I've spoken to saying that the incorrect names were put on there. How long is this process going to take to assure your members that it is indeed the right names that will be on those lists? And when it comes to your campaigning for the elections, we know the ANC has said that it has no money. How do you plan to conduct your elections if you continue to say that you have no money?
The will of the people is quite an important will. First of all, no, we didn't lie. The truth of the matter is 357 people were not allowed, were not registered. Let me put it that way. So if you have 357 people, some of them were candidates or award candidates, the others were PR candidates. I think of that, the PR candidate list of the Western Cape, which was presented the night before, so there was no timeline problem, did not register. Just as an example of Cape Town City, did not register. So it's not a lie. All we're saying is that you can't apportion a blame factor and say there's this and there's that. And the reason we withdrew our legal case was exactly because we sat down and we went through minutely, one at a time. What happened here, what happened there, what happened there. So it was the only way we could in fact say, look, whatever happens, we cannot blame the IEC system because we may have made a mistake in the input. We do know in 2 instances we were late. The one instance, we were definitely late. There's no doubt about that. On the other one, we were not late, but there's no system that has a perfection. So the system shut down at 9 o'clock the first time. That group of names went in at about 8:50 something, just before 9 o'clock. And at that point in time, many people do their inputs. That we know from past experience. That we must say is perhaps it's not a glitch, but a system. It would have slowed down at some point. I'm just saying that to you. So when we looked at that, we decided of those 359 names in total, we live with whatever comes out. We will try and see what to do, and we withdrew the court case. Now we withdrew the court case before the Concourt had made a decision, and I think that must show that we had decided. Look, it's a bit. Let's leave this thing. 359. It would have impacted on us over, not have taken away our ability to govern, but over 35 municipalities in the northwest, in Limpopo, a few, very few, very, very few in Gauteng, no more than 18, I think. No, I'm speaking from memory now. So I just want to say to you, lie is a very strong word to use, and I think that comes straight out of the mouth of one of the opposition parties, which is unfortunate because people who lie by definition are very quick to call other people liars. That's my attitude in life. So we didn't lie. We analyzed and we decided to withdraw our... The system was centralized for 2019. There was no problem. We don't think the problem is the centralization of the system, although I must say it is much more effective for somebody to get into the IEC office at 5 to 9 and sit there in a local area. Yeah, you go there with the list, it's physical, you wait until, and if you're waiting in the queue now, the IEC then does the uploading. We are discussing that, and a lot of our provinces have raised that as a problem. They have said, in their view, the centralization has created difficulties. Myself, I don't think so. I think what is the problem is that people procrastinated too late and too long. And when they knew that they were given 4 more hours, they should have jumped faster and not hoped and prayed and again waited for the last minute. We have another window now. And we're praying that no one will come with any excuse. And I have said this. I've said, look, there's no forgiveness. If anybody doesn't come with a full, complete, and a list with all the ID numbers in place. Can I also say that what had happened in some instances was people were elected as councillors, but they were not registered in the municipality where they were being elected as a councillor. So little detail like that was amongst that 359. So this takes, dealing with an election is actually an exact science. You cannot be lackadaisical and you cannot be inefficient. You've got to be very precise and very clear in your mind. Who you're putting onto that list, why they're there. They must be a registered voter on the voters' roll, number 1. Number 2, they must be a registered voter in the municipality, not necessarily the ward, but the municipality where they are being put up as a candidate. Those are 3 fundamentals that you cannot change because that is the law. So then, did we get special treatment? You could have called it special treatment if we went out on a megaphone and lobbied for the outcome of what the IEC eventually did do. We didn't lobby at all. Our attitude was, we'll go to the PLC and we'll put our argument there, which we did. We did not put our argument in the media. Formally, maybe one or two individuals might have done so. I can't take responsibility for that. But we took our argument where it mattered. And that was in the PLC. And there were 6 other political parties who had a similar view to us. So I'm not sure if all 7 parties lobbied, or if it's just the ANC that is capable of lobbying in this negative manner. We did not lobby. And I want to insist on that. I really don't care. To be frank with you, at this point, we've got to recognize that some in the opposition are fighting for their political lives right now. The scope of the terrain is broadening. People have more choices, and people will exercise those choices. All of us who are contesting this election have to understand that it is really the voters that matter, not our own personal perspectives about each other that matter, even though that's what we do in elections, isn't it? We go negative. I can assure you that the ANC will not conduct a negative campaign. We never do, and we never will. It's not who we are. We don't conduct witch hunts against the leadership of other parties. It's a waste of time. We only have 50 odd days left. We don't have time to waste.
Right, Jesse Duarte briefing the media there on local government elections and a range of issues. We'll have a summary for you on that a little bit later on. Now, the local economy has performed